Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of the 792 Florida Sports Podcast. I'm Hunter Williams and joined by Doug Pugh today. Unfortunately, Eric Clark was able to make it today. He's at home battling illness, but we hope to have him back as soon as possible. Want to add anything?
No. Get well soon, Peasy. We'll see you next week, brother.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and hit on our first topic. Last time we talked about 1A through 4A, and we will see where we saw where we projected teams to finish. Now we're going to hit on 5 through 8A, and I guess we'll start with 5A, which last year had Cardinal Gibbons defeating North Marion in the finals. Cardinal Gibbons is now in 4A, so we're guaranteed a new state champion. North Marion is still in 5A, but 5A North got very packed with a lot of good teams this year. And now we know that the 6A state champion Northwestern is now in 5A. How do you see 5A going?
Yeah, I think Northwestern would be the opening moneyline favorite for to get to Orlando. Now, coming out of the South, they'll still have to deal with American Heritage Plantation, who will have a decent squad. I don't know what they can do necessarily on offense just yet. I think they're going to have a great defense, which will keep them around in many games. So I expect American Heritage Plantation and Northwestern to be fighting out in Region 4 supremacy. Region 3, working my way from the bottom up, you've got Chamberlain that has dropped down from Tampa. They are now in a district with Tampa Jesuit, which should make some things very, very interesting in the bottom half of Region 3. So state semifinals time, you could see, a team like Jesuit or Chamberlain from out of the Tampa Bay area making some noise in Region 3. There's a couple teams that are just really good, solid football teams that could have some things to say about that in Region 3, like Zephyr Hills, like a Lake Wales, even a Hardy should be pretty good. Sebring is also down in 5A. They were in 6A last year. Palm Bay at Port Orange Atlantic makes a jump up. But the big two-ton elephant in the room in the region in North, looking at Region 2, is you've got Vanguard coming down from Class 6A. So they are in a district with Dunellen, who made the jump up from 4A. North Marion's still there. Lake Weir, Bellevue, in the district alone. On paper, you've got Orange Park, who's a pretty solid team. Clay, who's a pretty solid team. In that region, Nature Coast is a very, very good team as well. So Nature Coast, Vanguard, Clay, Orange Park, Bishop Moore, those teams should all have something to say about Region 2. Then in Region 1, you've got Rains, who is moved up from Class 4A, Bishop Kenny, who's still there, who's always a solid team, Godby, who's always a solid team. You've got Pensacola High School, Pine Forest High School, and Choctaw all making the drop from 6A. So there's a lot of teams in there that could do some damage, but I would say right now in Region 1, it's Rains and everybody else. So those teams that I singled out, the Rains, the Clays, the Orange Parks, the Vanguards, the Nature Coast, the Bishop Moores, the Palm Bays, Jesuit and Chamberlain, and then Northwestern and American Heritage Plantation, I expect to all kind of like I said, Zephyr Hills as well, all will be some playmakers in that Class 5A for me. I would think it would be Northwestern getting to the state finals, and I think that Rains has enough in the North to get it done, but I could see Rains and Vanguard. I could see Rains and Nature Coast, and you could even see a Godby or even a Choctaw who has cyclical in years past. They tend to have, every 3 or 3 years, they tend to have a really, really good team. Pine Forest as well, so I think it'll be interesting, but I think it's Rains and Northwestern for the state finals in Class 5A.
I'm going to agree with the Northwestern versus Rains pick. I was also going to add Region 3 also has Rockledge and Merritt Island as well. But Lake Wales might be the team that I've been hearing a lot of good things about. They probably could be a team that surprises a lot of people that maybe get to the Final Four. Then when we go up to Region 2, there's also Orlando Jones, which, from what I'm hearing, is very strong in the Orlando area this year. And in fact, they're going to play Reigns week 1, I believe, up in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that'll be a good litmus test for Jones, and I want to apologize for leaving them out. They were unfortunate. They were in Region 4 last year, so they had to deal with Cardinal Gibbons right out the gate. So I think that will certainly help Jones's circumstance. I would say that when you look at it, Region 2, pound for pound, is the most stacked in that class.
That I agree with. And also with Region 1, I did have Ribault, but the only thing that kind of went against them is I believe their coach was basically fired this past week. That kind of I now have my questions with them if they're going to be as good as I thought they were going to be. Then you also have Baker County and Wakulla, West Florida in Region 1. And another team that I'll probably mention a little bit later when we go to Northeast Florida preview that might be a wild card team, Ed White.
Yeah, I can see that. I like that. That's a good sneaky pick right there.
So we both agree with, I guess, Northwestern Reigns probably being the projected favorite to be in the 5A finals.
Be way too early to prediction. Yes, Reigns.
Oh yes, it's definitely early. I got that. I was just saying right now our pick.
I say that tongue in cheek.
I know. All right. I guess we'll move to 6A now. Last year we had Miami Northwestern, who is now in 5A, facing off with Armwood, who is now in 7A. So we're guaranteed 2 new teams in the 6A finals.
Yeah, we are going to get a little bit of new flavor, but it doesn't. We're going to get 2 new teams in the finals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to get one team from the bottom that represents Dade County, because I think, if you're looking in the bottom at Region 4, Class 6A, Miami Central, Norland is a much improved team, but I just don't know what they've got yet to make a true run at Central or Miami Southridge. I saw that Naples team against Northwestern last year. They got to bring a lot of kids back, and they've got to plug some holes. They run a veer, which is a very tough offense to make up points on. If they get you in the meat grinder, it's cancel Christmas, case closed. They're going to win in a running clock. But I could Naples now in Region 4, where they were in Region 3 last year, I think is going to pose a big challenge for them. At that stage, they're going to have to face either a Central or a Southridge, or even a Bell and Jesuit if Bell and Jesuit finds their spark there. Now, there's a couple of wild cards in that Region 4 that I'm looking at, aside from Naples, would be like Immokalee. I thought Immokalee, they're moving up from 5A, and so is Dunbar. So I think those 2 schools will be schools to keep your eyes out on for, as well as Dillard. Those would be safe bets that if you had to put your money on it, somehow you'd be able to feel comfortable with those 7 or 8 teams. The Fort Myers teams tend to be a little bit of a potluck. You don't know what you're getting between North, South, or Fort Myers. So I'll let the jury still out on them. Now in Region 3, there is a couple of different changes that could actually change the landscape in this region, and that one of them is that you've got an entirely new district that was in class. They were still in Region 3, but you've got a couple of new teams to there. Actually, they were all 7A. Excuse me. So now you've got Port Charlotte, Southeast Palmetto, Braden River, Charlotte, 6A12. That district, whether it be Charlotte, Braden River, Palmetto, may have something to say about who wins that region, but you've also got a very interesting district out at the Space Coast with, it's Space Coast and Polk County, which aren't exactly next door to each other. So you've got Auburndale and Lake Gibson. Auburndale is an emerging team. Lake Gibson is always a good squad. They're in there with Heritage, Bayside, and Gateway. But the fly in the ointment here is that you've got 6A10, which is all Tampa teams, which are always been Region 2 teams. So you've got, in Region 3, you'll have the likes of Hillsborough, Jefferson, and maybe, just maybe, you'll have an emerging team like Auburndale. So Auburndale, Lake Gibson, look at Jefferson, Hillsborough, and then either Palmetto, Braden River, or Charlotte in that Region 3 to make a run. Now, that's the South. In Region 2, going to the North, St. Pete has been decimated by either transfers or graduation. They lost 33 of their 49 kids. The district that I'm keeping my eye on is the Osceola, Clearwater, Countryside, Seminole, and Largo district. Clearwater and Largo are clearly two of the biggest forces in the race in all of Pinellas County this year. And that Region 2 is pretty soft. You've got Lecanto, Springstead, Lake Minneola, Pasco, 5A, Lando Lakes, Freedom, and Gaither, those last two teams from the Tampa area. So in Region 2, you're going to see something like Gaither, Clearwater, Largo. I think those three teams will rise, especially with Gaither having the schedule that they have. I think you might see Countryside sticking their necks in there. Springstead I like from out of Hernando County, even though I said their district was soft. I mean, when you compare it to Pinellas District, it doesn't really hold a lot of water. Now, you go to Region 1, and you got some pretty heavy hitters in there. You got Mainland, you got Ponte Vedra, you got St. Augie, you got Gainesville, and you got Robert E. Lee. And you've also got Escambia, who's been pretty good in the last couple of years. And then you got the one that nobody's really talking about, Mr. John Wilkinson, who has made a name for himself at Cocoa. He's now in his hometown of New Smyrna Beach, and Volusia County being my home for over 30 years. New Smyrna is somebody that you want to keep your eyes out. So all of that said, I would say that in the North, I'm going to take a long, hard look at maybe like Clearwater or Largo versus either Mainland or Lee. And in the South,
aren't you forgetting someone?
I'm sorry?
Aren't you forgetting someone that's also in that district?
Well, there's Columbia that's in there, correct? There's a lot of teams in that district. So I would actually take Gainesville out of there. So it was actually, I was looking right at Columbia and mentioned of Gainesville. My bad. Self-correction. So it's Columbia, Lee, Mainland, Clearwater, Largo in the North, with maybe an Escambia coming from up top. And then in the South, I'm going to take a long, hard look at Braden River, at Palmetto, maybe a dark horse like Hillsborough. And then the cream of the crop for me is going to be Miami Central and Miami Southridge with Dunbar, Immokalee, Naples, Dillard, Bellin Jesuit, and Norland with some things to say about it potentially.
All right. I guess we'll, with 6A North, like, it's really a long shot on that because there's several teams that, there's not a whole lot of separation. I guess I'll start, with, I agree with Auburndale probably being a potential dark horse for Region 3. I can see that. Region 1, I also had New Smyrna Beach going as a potential playoff team when I was doing my overview with Region 1. Also, Gulf Breeze could be a potential team that can make the playoffs. Maybe a team like Mosley makes it. But I guess it may come off as a bit of a homer pick, but I'm thinking Miami Central and Columbia in 6A finals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's going to be a nice, safe pick because I too like Columbia. Again, clarification: I was staring right at Columbia's name and called Gainesville for some reason.
That's their biggest rival.
I would say Mainland. I would say it would come down to fighting for Region 1 in those regional finals. I'd say it would be Mainland, Columbia, your winner going on.
That's my pick as well.
To maybe depending on how their ranked, I think Clearwater and